What's up guys, this is Bryce with Dust Runners Automotive Journal, and today I'm going to tell you about 8 awesome JDM cars that you've probably never heard of. Stay tuned. Now, the first car you've probably never heard of is a Mitsubishi FTO. This was an awesome little two-door front-wheel drive performance car that Mitsubishi offered from 1994 to 2000. The reason you've probably never heard of the FTO is because it was never actually sold in the US. Under the hood you'll find either a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder or a 2 liter V6. That's right, a 2 liter V6. That 2 liter V6 paired with the fantastic lightweight chassis made the FTO a pretty potent front-wheel drive performance car. Power output ranges from 123 to 197 horsepower depending on the model. It was such a good car that it was awarded Car of the Year Japan in 1994-1995 when it first came out. Now the next car on the list is the Mazda Lantis, which you might recognize as the Mazda 323. And the Lantis by itself is a super boring little kind of econo box, but the Type R model is what we're here to talk about. As you can see from the massive optional rear wing, the Lantis Type R means business. Part of the reason you've probably never heard of the Lantis Type R is that it's incredibly rare and was sold in very, very low numbers and was never available in the US. The Type R model was only sold in Japan, and it was equipped with a 2 liter V6 like the FTO and a limited slip differential. You can find this 2 liter V6 in the Mazda MX-6 in the US, which if you didn't already know, sounds absolutely incredible. Other features of the Type R include a front lip, side skirts, and colored front indicators. If you grew up playing racing games like Gran Turismo, you might recognize this next car, which is the Dome Zero. Now if you don't recognize it, it's probably because it never actually made it to the public. The Zero was born from the small company Dome, which was originally founded to build race cars. It took Dome over 2 years to build their first prototype, which ended up using various parts from Honda, Toyota, and Subaru. It sat at 38 inches tall, which, keep in mind, that's shorter than the GT40, which is already insanely low to the ground. And it was powered by a mid-engine setup, which used a 145 horsepower Nissan L28 engine. Although the Zero never made it to the Japanese market for various reasons, a few journalists had the opportunity to drive the Dome P2, which was sort of the production-ready version of the Dome Zero. There were reports of fantastic handling characteristics, although it was supposedly very hard to drive at the limit. Now, when it comes to rotary-powered cars, everybody knows about the RX-7 and the RX-8, but you've probably never heard of the Yunos Cosmo. Now this car was the flagship vehicle for Mazda's short-lived Yunos luxury brand, and you could buy it with either a 13B or a 20B rotary engine. It should be noted that the Yunos Cosmo was the only production vehicle to ever receive the 20B REW engine from Mazda. Unfortunately, at the time it was released, it didn't comply with Japan's regulations, and anyone who bought it was liable for extra taxes and fees because of the dimensions regulations that it failed to meet. Part of the reason you may have never heard of this car is the fact that it sold in pretty low numbers. From 1990 to 1995, Mazda produced less than 10,000 units of the Yunos Cosmo. Now this next car is another car that you might recognize if you grew up playing racing games, and that's the AutoZam AZ1. If you're like me and you've never heard of AutoZam, it's because they were a small company under Mazda which built K cars. The AZ1 is basically a tiny mid-engine sports car which Mazda designed and manufactured with the help of Suzuki, who supplied the 657cc turbocharged engine for it. One of the really cool and notable features of the AZ1 are the gull-wing doors, which are typically only something you see on very high-end cars. Now looking at the AZ1 by itself, it might not seem that tiny, but when you compare it to a modern car or truck, you realize how comically small it is. Continuing on the theme of tiny Japanese K cars is the Honda City. Now the standard City is basically just another boring K car, but the City Turbo is not just your average K car. More specifically, the City Turbo 2 is what we're talking about. The City Turbo 2 used a 1.2 liter turbo engine outputting 100 horsepower, which was quite a lot for a car that size in the 80s. Aside from the turbo engine, the Turbo 2 also received fender flares, side skirts, and an overall more aggressive design compared to the standard Honda City. It used independent suspension front and rear with an overall wider track thanks to the additional space granted by the fender flares. With 100 horsepower pushing around a 1,600-pound car, the City Turbo 2 went from 0 to 60 in around 8.5 seconds, which at the time was pretty impressive. You've probably heard of the Toyota Land Cruiser. But have you ever heard of the Toyota Mega Cruiser? It sounds like a stupid joke, but the Mega Cruiser is a real thing. At first glance, it might look like a ripoff of the Humvee, and it shares a lot of design features with the Humvee, although the Mega Cruiser is a bit taller, a foot longer, and about 1,000 pounds lighter. It was developed during the 1980s economic bubble in Japan, and it was basically designed to be an off-road monster, which would be used as an all-purpose military vehicle. It used independent suspension all the way around, portal axles, and a center tire inflation system, all of which are features that the Hummer also had. Although it was originally Originally designed for military use, Toyota saw potential for a civilian version and built the BXD-20 Mega Cruiser. Unfortunately, there wasn't much demand for a civilian version, and only 149 were built from 1996 to 2002. Now, the last vehicle on the list is the Mitsubishi Galant, but not just any old Galant, the Galant AMG. Now, you probably heard AMG and thought Mercedes, but AMG wasn't Mercedes exclusive until 1999, and before then, they occasionally branched off to weird projects like the Galant AMG. As far as I can tell, around 500 AMG Galants were built, and they were all built for the Japanese market. However, a few have been exported outside Japan. The AMG tuning consisted of a worked over 4G63 engine, which had its power increased to 170 horsepower without the help of forced induction, which was quite impressive considering the turbocharged Galant VR4 only put out 200 horsepower, which is 30 more than the Galant AMG. Other AMG touches include an interior with wood trim and a small aero package. Like I said, at this point, a few Galant AMGs have been imported outside Japan, and a few of them are here in the US, but it's pretty unlikely that you'll ever see one considering there's probably only 3 to 4 in the US. So that's all I have for you guys today. Be sure to let me know which cars you already knew about and which cars you think I should have included in this list. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.